Strong men don't fight for attention. They disappear with peace. They don't scream. They don't explain. They vanish. And when they do, the whole world feels the weight of their absence. Because the real ones don't beg to stay. They don't plead to be seen. They walk, calm, focused, unreachable. And you know what's terrifying? They don't come back. If you're ready for this life-changing truths, comment, "I choose peace" in the comments. Stay with me, because this will change the way you see everything. And if you want more of this truth to be heard, subscribe to the channel. You're not just helping us grow, you're helping another man out there hear what he needs before it's too late. Number 1. He stops explaining. You reach a point where your voice doesn't feel like yours anymore. You speak, but it echoes back with silence or sarcasm. You try to explain how you feel, and somehow it turns into a debate about why you're too sensitive, too controlling, too much. Over time, you start to wonder if maybe you are. That's what happens when you're around someone who listens only to respond, not to understand. You're not in a conversation. You're in a performance. You rehearse what to say so it doesn't trigger them. You choose your words like you're walking on glass. You edit yourself until you're a stranger to your own truth. That's not love. That's survival. And survival isn't living. Emotionally strong men stop explaining not because they're cold, but because they've realized the truth. People who want to understand you will make the effort, and people who don't will twist everything you say into ammunition. They stop explaining because they see no point in bleeding emotionally for someone who's not even trying to heal the connection. They stop because when a man truly sees his worth, he stops selling it to the lowest bidder. He realizes that giving explanations to someone who uses them as leverage is like handing over a weapon and begging them not to use it. And the truth is, many do. They wait for your vulnerable moment, your confession, your raw truth, and then they use it to control, to guilt trip, to shift blame. So he stops, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. He knows that his peace is found not in being heard, but in being true to himself. And that truth doesn't need to be broadcast to someone who's already decided it's invalid. Men like this don't stop explaining because they don't care. They stop because they care too much about wasting time. They've learned that being misunderstood by people who thrive on confusion isn't a failure. It's a sign to leave. They've learned that explaining themselves over and over only drains their energy, dims their fire, and delays their progress. And when you realize that, you don't argue anymore. You don't defend your boundaries. You simply walk in them. You stop asking people to treat you better and start treating yourself better. The most dangerous thing a man can do is stay in a place where he has to beg for clarity. That's where you lose yourself, your confidence, your focus. That's where you start living in their reality instead of building your own. And once a man wakes up to that, explaining feels like shackles. He wants freedom, he wants alignment, and that begins when he says less and does more, when he stops talking and starts walking, when he lets his absence speak louder than his words ever could. It's in that quiet exit that he finds his entrance into the life he was supposed to live. A life where he doesn't have to justify his peace. A life where he doesn't have to earn the right to be respected. A life where his silence isn't taken as surrender, but as elevation. This man doesn't cut people off in anger. He lets them fade away naturally when they no longer meet the standard. And in that choice, he reclaims power. Because the moment you stop explaining to people who only listen to reject you is the moment you start talking to the version of yourself that's been waiting to be heard. That version has goals, discipline, focus. That version has no interest in circles that run on chaos. That version doesn't explain. It executes, it builds, it transforms. And when that man rises, he doesn't need to say a word. because everything he is becomes the loudest statement in the room. If you feel this, if you've been explaining yourself into exhaustion, let this be your turning point. Choose growth, choose clarity, and never waste another sentence convincing someone of your worth again. You've already proven it by staying this long. Now prove it by walking into who you were meant to be. And if that version of you is someone you're ready to meet, not next year but now, then you need to experience the Stoic relationship blueprint. It's a timeless system built on Stoic principles that give you the mindset, the discipline, and the emotional strength to walk away from confusion, choose peace without guilt, and rebuild your life in your own image. It's finally available in audiobook format, so you can absorb every word while walking, training, or driving, wherever you are. No more waiting, no more excuses. This book doesn't just teach, it transforms. And once you own it, it's yours forever. Your roadmap, your reset button, your power. Click the link in the comments. Transform for life. Number 2. He doesn't play emotional games. He doesn't chase breadcrumbs, doesn't decode double meanings, doesn't cling to mixed signals and mood swings that flip like switches without warning or reason. He sees the game for what it is, an endless cycle of confusion designed to keep him in a place of emotional instability, where logic is mocked and loyalty is tested just to see if he'll break. But he's done breaking. He's done guessing. He's done playing a role in a script he never agreed to. Emotional games are not about connection, they're about control. They're built to keep you off balance, to keep you performing, to keep you wondering what you did wrong, even when you've done everything right. It starts subtle. One day she's warm, the next she's distant. She says everything's fine, but pulls away when you try to talk. Then she posts something online, just suggestive enough to make you question your place in her life. And when you confront her, she says you're insecure. You start overthinking every message, rereading every word, trying to make sense of someone who refuses to make things clear. That's not love. That's emotional sabotage. And a strong man walks away from that, not because he's afraid of conflict, but because he refuses to negotiate with chaos. He stops trying to win someone who finds pleasure in making him lose himself. He recognizes that the pattern isn't confusion, it's design. And once he sees that, the illusion breaks. He stops justifying her coldness as stress, stops defending her disrespect as mood swings, stops accepting gaslighting as misunderstanding. He knows that real connection doesn't require mind games. It requires clarity, consistency, and character. And when those are missing, he doesn't beg for them. He replaces the entire experience. He no longer gives attention to people who treat it like a reward to be earned. He doesn't play the prove your worth game with someone who has nothing to offer but emotional withdrawal and attitude. And when she tests him by pulling away, expecting him to chase, he doesn't. He lets her go. Because a man who values himself doesn't chase confusion, he invites clarity. He doesn't compete for the bare minimum. He walks where he's celebrated, not tolerated. And if that makes him the bad guy in her version of the story, so be it, because he's not in it to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding him. He's in it to live a life where peace is standard and drama is optional. You can't build a stable future on unstable behavior. You can't find peace in people who thrive on testing your limits instead of building something real. So he sets the boundary once, and when it's crossed, he doesn't argue. He exits. And that exit isn't cold. It's clarity. It's the recognition that games only work on people desperate to play. But he's not desperate. He's disciplined. He's not addicted to attention. He's loyal to his principles. And one of those principles is simple. If I have to lose myself to keep you, then I don't want you. If I have to question my value to feel loved, then this isn't love, it's control. And control is not love, it's possession. So he breaks the leash. He walks, and he never returns to a place where he was once treated like an option, because a man who respects himself will never again ask for validation from someone who feeds him doubt. He invests that energy into himself, into building, growing, evolving. He spends time with people who speak clearly, who love openly, who don't hide affection behind emotional punishments, and he becomes unshakable. He no longer looks for closure. He creates it by becoming someone so aligned with his standards that anything less feels like poison. And if you're stuck in a game right now, unsure whether to stay or go, ask yourself, how much of your truth are you sacrificing just to be tolerated? How much of your peace are you giving away to feel needed? How many nights have you stared at a screen, waiting for a message that never comes, only to get hit with one that confuses you more? That's not love. That's training. That's conditioning. And it's time to unlearn it. It's time to reclaim your power. You don't have to beg to be chosen. You don't have to prove your worth to someone who keeps moving the goalpost. Set your own standards. Communicate them once. And if they're not met, walk. Not with anger, not with drama, but with finality. That's how real men move. They don't fight for a seat at a table that belittles them. They build their own table. And only those who bring clarity, peace, and honesty get a seat. This is your moment to stop playing. Stop guessing. Stop bending to be accepted. Be clear, be firm, and most of all, be done with anything that feels like a game. Because the man who refuses to play can never be played. Number 3. He values his peace. Peace isn't found in a quiet room. It's found in a mind that no longer doubts itself every time a message is left on read, every time someone shifts their tone without reason, every time a promise is broken and somehow it's still your fault for reacting to it. You wake up one day and realize you're constantly trying to avoid stepping on landmines that you didn't plant. You try to keep things calm, only to be told you're too distant. You try to speak up and now you're aggressive. You give space, you're uncaring. You show up, you're suffocating. And slowly, your entire life becomes centered around managing someone else's emotions, while yours rot in silence. That's not connection. That's psychological erosion. And the man who chooses peace doesn't just do it to escape. He does it to survive with his identity intact. He gets tired of being the emotional punching bag, tired of being the stability in someone else's chaos while no one stabilizes him. He begins to understand that not all love is love. Some of it is dependency, manipulation, or need disguised as care. And when he sees it, he withdraws, not to punish, but to preserve, because he knows peace isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of alignment. It's when your actions, values, and environment finally match. When you don't have to constantly defend your sanity. When you're no longer gaslit into believing your expectations are too high just because you want respect and consistency. And when a man begins to live like that, everything changes. He sees the value in quiet mornings, in clarity, in friendships that don't require explanation. He finds joy in his own presence, in the way his mind works when it's not under emotional pressure, in the way his heart feels when it's no longer sprinting for someone else's attention. And he doesn't trade that for temporary attention from someone who brings drama like it's a gift. That woman who once pulled him into her confusion, he now sees her as a lesson, not a loss. He stops giving her second chances that always turn into second betrayals. He stops believing her apologies that come only when she senses he's slipping away. And he builds a world where those tactics don't work anymore. He replaces guilt with growth, arguments with ambition, and distraction with direction. His schedule becomes sacred. His space becomes protected. He doesn't respond to chaos because he's no longer addicted to it. You ever wonder why some men suddenly disappear from situations they used to fight so hard for? It's because they finally realized peace feels better than winning an argument. They discovered that proving a point isn't worth sacrificing inner balance. They figured out that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. They learned that you can't find your future in the same place that kept breaking your spirit. So they let go, not with a loud goodbye, but with a quiet decision. And that silence becomes their greatest power. If you're waking up every day with anxiety about how she'll act, what mood she's in, or whether today is the day she leaves just to test your reaction, you're not in a relationship, you're in emotional captivity. And that's not your home, that's not your end story. Your peace is worth more than her attention. Your clarity is worth more than her apology. Your future is worth more than her validation. And once you really feel that in your bones, you move differently. You stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to control outcomes. You focus on your body, your routines, your goals. You keep your word to yourself. You begin the work. You write down what needs to be done, not for approval, but because the man you're becoming demands it. And every day, you trade chaos for calm, games for goals, doubt for direction. You stop giving access to anyone who treats your peace like it's optional. And if they try to re-enter with the same confusion, you greet them with distance, not dialogue. Because you don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting what keeps you sane. That's your responsibility. That's your standard. That's your code. And if you're hearing this right now, let it remind you. Peace isn't something you stumble into. It's something you choose, again and again, even when it's lonely, even when it's misunderstood. Because the man who values his peace never begs for comfort from the same hands that caused his chaos. He creates a world where peace is the foundation, not a reward, where love is clarity, not confusion, and where he finally becomes the man he always had the potential to be, not by chasing someone else, but by returning to himself. Number 4, he has standards. A man who finally understands his worth doesn't just walk differently, he lives differently. He doesn't accept whatever is handed to him simply because he used to crave acceptance. He has rules now, non-negotiables, lines that don't blur, even when he's tempted. Especially when he's tempted, because he's lived the reality of what happens when standards are replaced by infatuation. He's seen what it costs to tolerate disrespect just because the connection felt exciting. He's paid the price for lowering the bar in the name of potential. And the debt, his peace, his clarity, his self-respect. So now, he keeps that standard high, not as a weapon, but as protection, because he knows that every time he lets it slide, every time he makes excuses, every time he convinces himself that it's not that deep, he's training himself to tolerate less than he deserves. And that's not love. That's emotional poverty. You can't love fully while living in constant compromise. You can't build something real when your foundation is built on tolerance and fear. Standards are boundaries with direction. They tell others what's acceptable, but more importantly, they remind you what kind of man you are becoming. And the man who has standards doesn't yell about them. He doesn't argue about them. He doesn't try to convince someone to meet them. He communicates them clearly. One time. And after that, he watches. He observes how people move. He sees who respects them and who sees them as a challenge to bend. And when he spots manipulation, emotional withdrawal when boundaries are enforced, punishment through silence, guilt-tripping to make him feel selfish, he doesn't fold, he walks. Not because he wants to lose people, but because he refuses to lose himself again. He understands that disrespect isn't always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. It's in how she laughs when he opens up. It's in how she minimizes his needs. It's in how she expects him to carry her pain, but refuses to hold space for his. And once he sees those patterns, he doesn't engage. He upgrades his environment. He realizes that the people who keep failing to meet your standards are usually the ones who expect to be accepted no matter what. And if you don't enforce your limits, they will stretch them until they break you. So he becomes strict with access. Not bitter, just clear. Not toxic, just done. He doesn't entertain disrespect just because she's attractive. He doesn't accept flakiness just because she says the right things when she feels you slipping. He doesn't keep circling back to old patterns just because he misses the connection, because what he misses is not enough to make him forget what it cost him. He remembers the nights he couldn't sleep, the anxiety from unanswered texts, the double standards in how he was expected to perform like a man while being treated like he was disposable. And those memories fuel his boundaries. He doesn't over-explain them. He just embodies them, and if someone can't handle them, he lets them go. With peace, with grace, but with finality. He doesn't negotiate the value of his standards to make others comfortable. He doesn't water down his truth just to be liked, and he doesn't confuse tolerance with love. Because the more you tolerate, the more you lose touch with who you are. The man with standards doesn't chase being understood. He focuses on being aligned. He doesn't obsess over who stays. He values who respects his presence without needing reminders. He's no longer afraid of losing someone who can't meet the bar. He's afraid of losing the version of himself he's fought so hard to rebuild, and that fear keeps him grounded, keeps him sharp, keeps him elevated. And for the man listening to this, if you keep bending, if you keep tolerating, if you keep shrinking just to be accepted, this is your wake-up call. Set the bar, enforce it, and rebuild everything around it. Not just in relationships, but in business, in friendships, in how you treat your time, your sleep, your energy. Don't negotiate with anything that asks you to betray your standards. Don't compromise with patterns that lead you back into self-doubt. And don't ever again settle for a connection that costs you clarity. You are not here to explain why you deserve consistency. You are not here to prove your worth to someone who only shows up when it benefits them. You are not here to be chosen by someone who never respected the cost of your loyalty. You are here to walk in alignment, and when you do, your standards won't feel like demands. They'll feel like freedom. Number 5. He focuses on his purpose. There's a shift that happens in a man when he finally stops trying to convince someone to see his worth and starts building a life that makes it undeniable. It's a moment of clarity, one that doesn't come with trumpets or big declarations. It comes in silence, in solitude, in that space where distractions fall away and all that's left is the truth he's been avoiding, that everything he's been giving to others, his time, his patience, his energy, his loyalty, needs to be redirected, not because he's bitter, but because he's tired of investing in places that give no return. And in that moment, he makes a decision, not out of rage, not out of grief, but out of deep, unshakable focus. He decides to rebuild, not his reputation, not his relationships, but himself. He stops checking her story to see who she's with. He stops scrolling through old texts, trying to decode where it went wrong. He stops replaying conversations in his head, looking for the line that triggered her to switch up, because none of that matters anymore. What matters is that he has goals that have been sitting in the dark, gathering dust while he was caught in emotional limbo. What matters is that his health, his finances, his discipline, all took a back seat while he was trying to fix what someone else kept breaking. And now he shows up for himself the same way he used to show up for everyone else. He wakes up earlier, not because it's trendy, but because his future doesn't sleep in. He writes down his goals, not vague dreams, but clear, measurable steps. He doesn't just talk about building a business. He studies, he plans, he executes. He doesn't just say he wants to get fit. He moves with purpose. eats with discipline, tracks his progress without announcing it. Because he's not doing it for applause, he's doing it for freedom. He spends less time explaining himself and more time becoming undeniable. He speaks less and produces more. And while she might notice he's not reaching out anymore, while friends who used to use him as emotional support might wonder why he's distant, he keeps moving. Because the man on purpose doesn't pause for confusion. He doesn't explain his evolution to people who couldn't handle his boundaries. He doesn't slow down for people who only loved the version of him that was convenient. And in this journey, he finds something better than attention. He finds alignment. The gym becomes his therapy. Books become his mentors. Early mornings become his sanctuary. His circle shrinks, but his clarity grows. And the old him, the one who over-explained, over-apologized, overextended, dies quietly in the background while a new version takes the wheel. A version who knows that peace is earned, not given. That results speak louder than words. That purpose doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. He starts vetting people differently now. It's not about how good they make him feel when things are good. It's about how they respond when he's focused, when he's disciplined, when he's unavailable for nonsense. He realizes most people only love you when you're available for their drama. But when you choose structure, silence, and solitude, you start to see who was using your chaos for comfort. And he's done being that guy. He's done being the emotional fix for people who wouldn't even check on him if he disappeared. Now his conversations are shorter, his standards higher, and his results louder. He builds a life that doesn't need defending, that speaks for itself. And every setback he used to cry over now becomes a lesson. Every time he was ghosted, overlooked, manipulated, it all becomes fuel, not to hurt others, but to heal himself, to develop the discipline that will free him from needing external validation, to build a life where his emotions no longer drive his decisions. His vision does. And when that man walks into a room, he doesn't demand attention. He commands it, not through bravado, but through presence, through the calm, measured way he moves, through the confidence that doesn't need permission. And when people ask him where he's been, he doesn't give a speech. He just smiles. Because real transformation doesn't require explanations, just results. And to the man hearing this, if you're tired of feeling stuck, tired of being manipulated, tired of chasing people who never saw your value, this is your call to go all in. On you. Block the distractions, cut the noise, stop trying to be understood, and start becoming someone who doesn't need to explain. The gym, the books, the business, the habits, these are not trends. They are tools. Use them. Build a schedule that breaks you out of the cycle. Say no more. Say less. Do more. Hold yourself accountable. Audit your circle. Prioritize your health, your finances, your peace. Not someday, today. And when you look back 6 months from now, you won't just see results. You'll see a man who doesn't flinch when people leave, who doesn't break when plans fall through, who doesn't beg for love that should have been freely given. You'll see a man who's unshakable, not because life got easier, but because he got focused, because he chose purpose over pity. And that choice, that's what makes him unstoppable. If you're done explaining yourself, if you're done begging to be understood by people who feed off your pain, then now's the time to choose yourself for real. Comment, "I'm done explaining" below if you're ready to walk into the man you were meant to become. Like this video, subscribe, and help other men break free from the same traps before it's too late. And if you're ready to stop guessing, to stop tolerating, to stop living at half your power, grab the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook right now. It's packed with timeless Stoic principles that will shift your mindset immediately. And now, it's finally available in audiobook format, so you can listen to the truth while you walk, train, or move through your day. you'll never see relationships or yourself the same again. It's linked in the comments.